Welcome into the Powers That Be. I'm Isaiah Kim Martinez. Like we've promised, we've reached out to every single top Senate candidate, both Republicans and Democrats, before the May 19th primary here in Kentucky. And today, this morning, we're joined by Colonel Amy McGrath, the former Marine fighter pilot, running as a Democrat in the race to replace Mitch McConnell. Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
We know we had you actually in our studio just a couple weeks ago for our Democratic Senate Forum, where you were on stage with Charles Booker, Dale Romans, and Pamela Stevenson. I guess I want to start there. You know, coming off the stage there, what issue do you feel like you really had the advantage and delivered on, maybe better than your opponents?
Well, I think clearly the issue that I delivered on and can continue to deliver on that makes me better than my opponents is the national security issue that we're all dealing with, right? And also, you know, I feel like right now with everything that's going on in Iran, gas prices are rising up to $5 a gallon. People don't know why we're there, and we absolutely need a senator who understands our national security, understands the global crisis that we're in right now, and is willing to stand up to this president who's really unhinged and doesn't know what he's doing in the international arena. So I think that's number one. But what's on people's minds as I crisscross the state, and I talk to folks every single day, is two things: affordability and accountability. And that's what I am talking about. That's what I'm going to focus on as the next senator from Kentucky.
You know, you brought up, before we started, you brought up the tariffs on bourbon, you know, specifically in the UK. We know Canada, that's been a whole thing between Canada versus the United States, which is pretty much Canada versus Kentucky, right, when it comes to pulling bourbon off the shelves. Yeah. But the UK, we know, is a big export market for bourbon as well for Kentucky. And the president had posted on his social media, his Truth Social page, that after meeting with the king and queen, that he felt, you know what, I'm convinced, let's try to roll back at least some. He didn't give a lot of details, but some of these tariffs on bourbon exports into the UK. I just wanted to get your take.
Sure.
I mean, does that help in your mind?
Sure, if you believe that he's not going to roll it back in a tweet next week. That's the problem. So the bourbon industry, like any other industry, wants certainty. That's the most important thing for markets, for growth. They want to know, bourbon, for example. You don't just make bourbon over, I don't know, a week. It takes years, right? We know this. And so when you have these tariffs that are sort of unilaterally put in via tweet, the industry doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So it's great that President Trump likes King Charles and wants to tweet, oh, I'm going to lift the tariffs on Great Britain. Okay, well, that's great. But what's he going to do next week? He shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. Congress should have been, if anybody should have been doing it, it should have been Congress. And I frankly think that we shouldn't have done it at all. Unilaterally, tariffs across the board hurt our bourbon industry, hurt our farmers, hurt all of us at the checkout. And just last year, this year as opposed to last year, Kentuckians are spending $2,500 more because of these tariffs. So it's nice to say that, well, the president lifted this on Great Britain, but that's one country. And he never should have instituted them to begin with. Well, I guess I would ask listeners and viewers, what was the purpose of the tariffs? Nobody knows. They said initially, oh, it's to bring back manufacturing. Oh, it's to make other countries pay. Well, now we know 95% of the tariffs are paid by us. And how much is our manufacturing coming back because of tariffs? Like, not at all. Nobody knows why this. It's a power thing by the president. And those people whose job it is to please the president, like all the Republicans running on the other side of the ticket, they love it because it's about pleasing the president and his power. It's not about us.
You've talked about repealing the tariffs being a priority for you if you were elected to the U.S. Senate. We actually have seen the U.S. Senate. Bipartisanship is harder to come by nowadays on Capitol Hill, it seems like, but we had this finally, in some people's minds, this DHS funding bill, after 70 days of being held up. We did see Republicans and Democrats in the Senate and then in the House eventually say, okay, like we're going to put this forward, and we're actually going to leave ICE for later.
Right.
I mean, do you see that as a Democratic win? Do you feel
I
like,
do.
looking back, that was the right strategy?
I do, because, look, ICE was out of control. And at some point, we need to step up and say, enough is enough. And Democrats don't have the power like we will after these midterms. And so that was really one of the only ways we could enforce this, and to say enough is enough when it comes to ICE. But I do think that there are places that we could come together. For example, the tariffs. If you're completely in the corner, the camp of this president, and you're unable to stand up to him, you're for these things. If you're somebody like our other senator here in Kentucky, has been pretty vocal against the tariffs.
Right.
I mean, I feel like there are enough people, if Democrats are able to win the House and the Senate back, to be able to come together for some of these issues.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe the Senate's in play here for this cycle? It seems like the conversation initially was the House was really like, okay, let's look at that for Democrats at least. Now it seems like there's some rumblings that maybe the Senate is in play in 2026.
I think the Senate is absolutely in play.
Give me your map. Like, well, what kind of what results could you see? Like, do you see like in Ohio?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ohio, Maine, North Carolina, I think are really good. But I also think Kentucky is in play, obviously. And why? Why? Because of the incompetence of this administration and the cowardice of Republicans in Congress, and particularly Republicans who are running for this open seat, unable to stand up to the president in the interests of Kentucky. Tariffs are a good example of that, right? And this bill that was just passed last summer that crushes us in terms of health care. I mean, we have the most to lose of any state in the country. And they passed this bill that puts 35 of our rural hospitals at risk, more than any other state. All of these things that hurt our state, these guys voted for. And I feel like that puts Kentucky in play, because Kentuckians are saying, hey, wait a second. This guy that we elected into the presidency, we elected him to bring down prices. What are the prices doing? We elected him to not take us into new wars. Wait, we just started a new war. Did Kentuckians vote for 35 of our rural hospitals to be at risk? No. Did we vote for higher taxes in the form of tariffs? No. And meanwhile, these guys are in Washington, and what are they focused on, Isaiah? They're focused on ballrooms and golden doors. I mean, that's what they're going to bat for right now, when gas prices are about ready to hit $5 a gallon. And nobody's willing to stand up and say, what the heck are we doing in Iran? And this is where I come in, right? Because I'm somebody that spent my entire adult life in the world of national security. I've done dozens of war games on Iran. We knew that they were going to close the Strait of Hormuz. We knew that this would be a strategic disaster. How come there was nobody in the Senate, certainly on the Republican side, saying, what are you doing, Mr. President? And oh, by the way, Congress is the one that's supposed to declare war, not have one guy unilaterally take us into war without the consent of the American people.
You've talked about reaching out to independents and moderates in Kentucky and understanding, in your words, that this is not just, I want Democrats to see my vision. You've talked about the bipartisanship of it.
Yeah.
I would like an example, if you could provide. If you were in Congress, right, are there a couple senators that you've picked out, like, okay, those are Republicans who, I could have a conversation, we can get something done. Can you give me an example?
Well, Senator Lankford in Oklahoma was the one who came up with the bipartisan bill to tackle immigration and the border. I think, I could work with him. I could work with Senator Young. He's a senator from Indiana. He's a Naval Academy graduate. He has talked about the need for our Navy to be more robust. Our shipbuilding is in the tank right now. We need to counter China, which is another reason why this war in Iran is absolutely ridiculously dumb, because we're pulling assets away from the Pacific. I could work with him on that. It's something that we needed to do for a long time. I talk about our own senator here with Senator Paul with the tariffs, and also with these illegal killings that we're doing in the Caribbean. having our military schwack these guys on speedboats with no due process, no declaration of war. We're just killing people right now. I'm not for that. And he's been pretty vocal against that. We need to rein in the power of this president. And I think I could work with some on the other side to do that.
Given your military background, too, it's interesting you bring up China, right? It's sort of like bringing up China as this existential threat has sort of been a Republican issue in most people's minds, at least one that they talk about, at least in recent years. Democrats, at least nationally, that's not one of their top. But you just brought it up. Do you want to shed some light on sort of how that would be?
Because we're ceding power right now, and it's the Republicans doing it. Let me give you some examples. One, this war in Iran. We have depleted our munitions. In some cases, up to 50% of our interceptor missiles. We've had to move missiles and weapons from the Pacific over to the Middle East, leaving vulnerable Taiwan, leaving vulnerable our allies in South Korea and in Japan. They don't know what to think of us anymore. Are we even going to be with them? Meanwhile, China is building a navy the size of the French Navy every single year. That's how big their complex is moving in the military industrial. So we do have to counter them. In addition, we are ceding power to them in so many other ways. Two other big ways, I'll tell you. Soft power. This idea that we're pulling out of world organizations, we're pulling out USAID. Guess who's going to fill the gap around the world? China is. And the other piece is new technologies like renewable energy. You know, this business of we've got to cut all of our subsidies and our programs for renewable. That's hurt Kentucky. We've lost thousands of jobs here in Kentucky, right, with the electric battery plant changing because because this administration came in and they hate it so much that they're cutting jobs. You know who's going to take that technology and run with it? China. And you know what? The world is going in that direction. Why? Because it's more efficient. And so I don't want to cede that power. I don't want to cede new markets to China. I don't want to cede the military weaponry, especially our Navy, our naval power to China. I want to be the power that this nation needs to be for the world. And right now, Republicans are, I don't know what they're doing.
Do you believe the Defense Department, you know, because you hear from a lot of progressives nowadays who are just not interested as much in talking about foreign intervention. It seems like that may be an area where maybe you do disagree that, you know, like, no, the Pentagon and the Defense Department, we do need to, you know, make sure that it properly. I mean, what's your take on sort of increasing funding for the Department of Defense?
I actually disagree. I think right now what we're doing in this $1.5 trillion budget that they want is absolutely insane. And it is because we started this ridiculously dumb war, in which we are losing, by the way, that it's hurting our country. It's hurting our posture. We didn't need to deplete 50% of our weapons. We didn't need to lose 13, 14 service members. We didn't need to close the Strait of Hormuz. We are going to have to pay for this long term, okay, because of their incompetence, because of guys like Pete Hegseth. But I do think I've always been somebody that believes we should have a strong military, and we do. We just need political leaders that understand you can't just use the military when you don't have a strategic endpoint. Bombing people just to bomb is not an answer. It may be a tactical win. It doesn't win the war, all right? We spent how many years in Vietnam, killed how many people, and we didn't win the war. We spent 20 years in Afghanistan to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. These guys don't know what they're doing. And I think more than anything, what Democrats need to know is we need Democrats who have actual national security experience to get into office to be able to counter the craziness that we're seeing right now.
You know, you bring up China. Obviously, AI is another big topic right now. I don't know if you've referenced that sort of organically, but I know there are a lot of thoughts on regulations, what we should do federally on a state level.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's like which country is going to sort of harness this first. Nuclear energy is another one.
Right.
AI, how would you approach that on a federal level?
I mean, first of all, I think we need people who are not on flip phones in the United States Senate. I think we need people who understand technology a little bit more, and that's why I've called for new leadership in the Senate. But I think broadly, this is really important technology. It is going to happen, and it's scary. It's scary for all of us. We don't know how it's going to impact our lives. We don't know how many jobs it's going to impact. I do think it can't be a free-for-all for corporations and big tech. We have to, as a country, we have to have leaders who are wise enough to be able to have these debates about guardrails around AI, not only for jobs, but also for just our kids, for the future. At the same time, we don't want to say, this is all bad, because it is technology that's happening, and we have to develop it. I mean, the national security piece of this is really real. We're looking at, you sort of have to win that fight technologically to make sure that our competitors are around the world don't. So I do think that I'm not somebody that says, no AI. I say we need to have people in the Senate that understand it and that put some guardrails around it and make sure that we're protected.
Sort of related here, and we'll move on to maybe some of I always like to go policy as well as politics. We need to cover both. But just real quick, when it comes to kids and their cell phones, not just AI, but we've seen other countries. I think Australia had a ban for any kids under, 16 or 15 without their parents' approval. And your mom, is that something that you believe federally that we should, or handled on a state level?
I'm actually a big proponent of parenting. And I feel like parents should have the option to be able to, I'm not big in the government coming in and telling parents what they can.
So you're not really into like a flat 16.
I'm not. And I do think schools should be able to do, and community, the school districts and things like that should be able to enforce things. And parents should be able to enforce things. And I also am a big proponent of transparency. So there needs to be studies. I think government should be making sure that the big tech isn't having technology in there that gets kids addicted, which we know is happening. I think there needs to be more hearings on that, and more. The American people need to know what's going on a lot more than we do right now.
I want to talk about this race and your opponents. I know you don't like to talk a lot about necessarily each individual candidate you're facing. But if you look at past races, experience, and then some of the polling, you and Charles Booker seem to be the top two by most estimates, at least based on name ID and current polling. How do you defeat Charles Booker here in these final weeks? Because he obviously has quite the contingent in the state as well.
Yeah, I think primaries are important and they're good. And the people of Kentucky are going to make their vote. And I think my message has always been, look, if we're going to win in November, we need a candidate who's a Democrat. If Democrats are going to win, we need a candidate who can speak to not just Democrats, but also independents and moderates in order to win. Just like our great governor here, Andy Beshear, has won twice here statewide. And so I take a page from his playbook. You talk about the things that matter to people, and we talk to not just Democrats. And that's why, I've said that message from the very beginning, and that will be a message that I'll continue here at the end.
I guess the counter argument would be in Kentucky, obviously, if you're an independent, you can't vote in the Democratic primary. And Republicans, certainly, you have the options of the Republican candidates. You have to get there, right? I told Del Romans the same thing because he had a similar argument. I just want to, kind of hit that point again.
Sure, but Democrats are smart, we need to know that hey, if we're going to win in a state like Kentucky, you can't just speak to us. We have to be able to get a broad coalition to be able to win this seat. And that's what I've been focused on from day one.
Is there an area that you'd like to point out that you say, okay, versus Charles Booker, I have this strength over his weakness? Do you believe? Yeah, is there one
for sure?
Specifically?
There's a lot of them, but the biggest one is national security. Look, when you think about the United States Senate, This is not a local thing. This is an international seat. I mean, it is somebody that has to understand what is going on in our nation and the world. I have the experience, the background to be able to do this. Okay, I've served in the military, and in that time frame, I've also served with other government agencies like the State Department, like the CIA, and also other countries. I understand how global markets work. I've been all around the world. That has been my career in understanding the nation's strategy and where we need to go forward. I think that's a huge difference between myself and Mr. Booker.
You've hit, I think, over 50 counties, is that right, in Kentucky as far as campaigning? Yeah. I believe you crossed that milestone just a few days ago, or at least that's when the release went out. What is your kind of blitz plan? Can you give us some specific areas. Where are you going to be?
Well, I always say I'm going to try to be everywhere, and we have gone all around the state. I'll be
what's on the list? Next.
I mean,
3 or 4.
we'll be obviously here in Louisville. We'll be in Lexington. We'll be going down to Bowling Green multiple times there, in Owensboro, Northern Kentucky. So we're going to be everywhere. I've traveled this state. I love talking to people. Listening, what I hear from folks is this: hey, we want somebody who's going to tackle the affordability crisis that we're seeing right now, and we want somebody who's going to make sure that we hold this administration accountable for the corruption that we're seeing in Washington right now. And I think those are the 2 things that I focus on, because that's what I hear from people.
You've run races before. Lastly, obviously, you've been a top fundraiser in the past. I believe you were either 1 or 2 in this primary as well. Will we see you on the air in the final weeks or not?
I'm on the air. We're up digital. We'll be on the air next week, and we're
like campaign ads on.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the other thing that I'm really proud of is that we have the largest grassroots operation. So my campaign is funded by people. The average donation is like $40. That is way different than anybody on the Republican side, and frankly, way different than anyone on the Democratic side, if you pull the string on that.
Well, I think Dale, I started to see Dale Romans' ads a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I think that was statewide.
Yep.
I don't know if there's a counter.
Ours are there too. So ours are up digitally, and they'll be up next week as well. Mm-hmm. And so you have different tactics as to when you put these things up. And I'm not going to get into the weeds there, but yeah, we're talking to everybody statewide.
A message to maybe younger progressives in Kentucky that you'd like to share, say 30 or 25 and under, of why they should vote for you, because it's an interesting world out there for Democrats right now. Yeah. There's a lot of frustration with quote unquote establishment Democrats. I wanted to get your sort of take on that and your message out to the young progressives in Kentucky.
Well, first, I'm not sure I'm an establishment anything.
I wasn't implying you were. I was saying that's what they're grappling
It's always
with.
Really interesting to me, because the one candidate in this race who's been in politics longer than anyone is Charles Booker. Myself, Pamela, Dale, we all had very distinguished careers before we jumped into politics, and we've actually been in politics like half the amount of time or less. But my response to younger voters is, or really to anyone, is look, we agree on so many things. We think our system is not working. We think the wealthiest 1% corporations have way too much power, and right now people are not making ends meet. We have the most corrupt president in American history. It needs to be countered, and we need to win. And to do that in Kentucky, like I said, we need to win not only Democrats, but in this state, we have to win independents and we have to win moderates. And so what I'm interested in doing is winning in November to make sure that we bring down prices, to make sure that we hold this president and the administration accountable, and all of those reasons. And I think, we can quibble over whether you want Medicare for all or you want a public option. The bottom line is we all want to get healthcare prices down, and we all want to do it in a way that helps people. The way that I think is best to do that is to get healthcare to the most people the quickest way that I think can actually be done, instead of a slogan. But at the end of the day, we're all for the same things.
All right. Amy McGrath, former Marine fighter pilot, running as a Democrat in this U.S. Senate race to replace Mitch McConnell, who has been in that seat for more than 40 years. Amy, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Great to be with you.
That's been the Powers That Be. Thank you all so much.